Hey, what up, YouTube, and welcome back to a new video with Rams fan at YT. I've just noticed my camera is absolutely woeful. There we go. And welcome back to a new video with me, Rams fan YT. Today we're going over my predictions for the festive period. For games come thick and fast at this time of year, and for this is some huge games. We've got a lot of local rivalries kicking off down in the upper reaches of a non-league pyramid, as they do the traditional um, sort of Boxing Day things of playing their local rivals. We got Sheffield versus United versus Burnley in what could prove to be a good title decider. A relegation 6-pointer between Carlisle and Morecambe in League Two, and a lot more great games. So let's get straight into this really exciting video. Manchester City against Everton. Manchester City have been on one of them poor runs of form. They're actually the out of form team in the Premier League right now. Something's not quite right at that club at the moment as they have dropped down into seventh. I think you look at it, and only Southampton, I think, of a worse team, worse a team than Manchester City at the moment. I think, though, this could be a good comeback. At home at the Etihad, they are up against Everton, which are a difficult side, but I think Man City will win this one. 2-0 to Manchester City, back to winning ways. AFC Bournemouth versus Crystal Palace. Bournemouth are in fifth. They are doing really well this season. They're against Palace, who are struggling with a relegation form at the moment, but they're 4 points clear. They'll probably be safe come the end of the season. I think this is going to be an hour game. Bournemouth to win 1-0 and continue their good form. Chelsea versus Fulham in a West London derby. Huge game here. Chelsea are in the time of their lives, most informed team in the league. Up against Fulham, who've had a lot of draws of late. They've not been looking too shabby themselves. I'll go with a narrow 1-0 win to Chelsea here. It'll be a good scrappy game. Newcastle United versus Aston Villa. Newcastle have won back-to-back games against Villa, who have done a decent run of form this season. That have taken them to sixth, the eighth. I think this could be an interesting game. I'm going to go home advantage, dominant performance by the Magpies, 5-1 to Newcastle United. I know, bit of a shock. Newcastle could get Europe this season. I could see that happening. Yeah. Nottingham Forest versus Tottenham Hotspur. Tottenham are such a weird team this season. I'm up against Nottingham Forest, who are doing well, but I think Forest could maybe, and I'm hoping, bottle this one against Tottenham. 2-0 to Spurs in their crazy, crazy season. Southampton versus West Ham United. Yeah, West Ham down in 14th. They've had 2 draws in their last 2 games. Up against Southampton, who have only picked up 6 points this season. Although they have a new manager, and maybe we'll get something from this game. A 1-0 draw here at home. They're going to need probably a bit more than that to stay in the league. But it's a start. Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Manchester United. Manchester United are in the bottom half at Christmas time for the first time since 1986. I read somewhere the other day, and it really just tells you where Manchester United are at the moment. With them in 13th, they're up against Wolverhampton Wanderers, which aren't doing much better, down in 18th, 2 points from survival. I think this could be a real end-to-end game. 4-3 to Manchester United. I could see this going all over the place, though. Liverpool versus Leicester City. Leicester just above relegation zone by 2 points. I think this is going to be a loss for the Midland-based team. Liverpool are on fire this season. 3-1 to Liverpool. Fairly routine win for the Reds. On to the Championship. We have got Blackburn at home to Sunderland. This is a good, solid game. This is 4th versus 5th. It has the potential to be a playoff semi-final fixture. And I certainly think at the moment these two teams are hard to separate. I go Sunderland to win this one 3-1. I think they've been slightly better across the ports of the season. They've got 6 more points. They've definitely been quite a confident team of late. And Blackburn did lose their winning streak in their last game. could create a bit of nerves around that ground. Bristol City versus Luton Town. Bristol City, very interesting mid-table team, I must say, in 12th. Up against Luton Town, who are in 15th, equally mid-table. Not much riding on this game here. I'll go 2-0 to Bristol City uh, as they continue to have their weird mid-table season. Coventry City versus Plymouth Argyle, in which is the battle of the best former pros of the 2010s England squad of Wayne Rooney versus Frank Lampard. Neither of these have made an amazing impact on management. I think Lampard has done a slightly better job than Wayne Rooney. Both managed Derby, of course. Uh, Coventry at home here. I think this will be a slender win for Coventry City here, with Plymouth rooted to the bottom of the table. 1-0 to Coventry City here. Middlesbrough versus Sheffield Wednesday. Middlesbrough are doing strongly this season. They're in 6th place. They are only by goals scored, mind you, in the playoffs. But they have a good opportunity here because the Sheffield Wednesday team, who are decent, they're breathing down the next 3 points behind, although 12 goals difference. So they would be able to get into the playoffs, I reckon, this game regardless. But it isn't an easy task. I'm going to go Middlesbrough to win this one. Home advantage 2-0. Norwich City versus Millwall. Millwall in 10th, having recently lost Neil Harris. Uh, Norwich themselves, probably not the greatest team at the moment in mid-table. Probably would be expected to be a bit higher. 2 points separating the two. Oh, home advantage here. Norwich City 3, Millwall 1. Oxford United versus Cardiff City. And I've said in the intro and in the description of a relegation 6 point in League Two. Well, this is probably a relegation 6 point in the Championship. Both of these teams on 18 points, 1 point away from safety. Yeah, it's going to be a tough game for either. I go Cardiff to end this one else. 3-1 to the Welsh side and get themselves out of the relegation zone. Preston North End versus Hull City. I think this has got a boring game written all over it. Preston North End with 11 draws this season. We've had a lot of them. Up against Hull City, who I must say haven't been the greatest team this season. I'm going to go with a boring 0-0 draw. I think Preston are probably fed up of drawing this season. Will Hull take the point? I'm not entirely sure. It depends how the game at Portsmouth goes, ultimately, whether they would or not. Sheffield United versus Burnley in what I dubbed as a title decider. Burnley are in third. They are 4 points off the title. Sheffield United are currently in top, 3 points clear. Second place Leeds. If Burnley get all 3 points here, it throws the title race well and truly open. And I do think Burnley will win this one. 4-1 to the Clarets. A bit of a shock for the Blades. But I do think Burnley have it in them to be a team. They've got solid defence, both of these teams. It's just, I think Burnley could slightly edge this one out. They just need to score more goals. Swansea City versus Queen's Park Rangers. Swansea in 11th. They are banging mid-table. They have scored 24, conceded 24. I think they're the most mid-table team in the Championship as we are recording this video. They're up against Queen's Park Rangers, who have had a decent run of form of late. Let's not take that away from them. And I reckon they could get another win here. I really do. 1-0 to Queen's Park Rangers. Watford versus Portsmouth. Watford are 1 point off the playoffs, so they'll be desperate to get all 3 points against a Portsmouth team who have been all right, apart from their demolishing by Derby County. But they were good in their last game with a solid Lang performance against Coventry. But I think Watford will win this one. 2-0 at Vicarage Road to the Hornets. Derby County versus West Bromwich Albion. Now, Derby, I don't know what. I've been predicting a lot of losses for Derby recently, but I think at home, West Brom will be wanting to get all 3 points here, but we do have good home form. We've been competitive in games at home, and it's not as if we're losing them by huge margins. I'm going to go for us to win this one. A slender, narrow 1-0 win on Boxing Day for the Rams. Come on, we're going to do this. vital 3 points that would be in our bid for safety, would keep us in that mid-table position, wouldn't take us to drag into it. I'll take a scrappy 1-0 against West Brom, to be honest. Stoke City versus Leeds United. Another equally scrappy team is Stoke City, who I must say are a team which are very much in danger of getting pulled into it. They're only 4 points clear of a relegation zone. If things don't go their way, they could end up really getting into the thick of it. But they are up against Leeds, who are one of the stronger teams this season. But I do think Stoke will win this one. A narrow 1-0 to the Potters at for Bet365. I think Stoke could do this. It'll be make an interesting day if they do at the top of the table. On to League One, you got Leighton Orient versus Crawley Town. Leighton have been on a absolute amazing run of form to have taken them away from that relegation picture into 15th in mid-table. Crawley were only narrowly beaten by this solid Birmingham side at 1-0 in the last game, so they haven't been a discredit. They've hung on in games. I reckon it'll be a close game again. Leighton Orient to win this one by 1-0, but could really go either way. Birmingham City versus Burton Albion. I think Burton Albion under Lee Bowyer may be able to get some good form. And they're up against Birmingham, who are winning, have won their last 5 games. I think Birmingham may have a slight bit of arrogance against the Burton team, which have been not great this season. A 1-1 draw here. I think it'll probably be a bit too late in the season for Burton to be able to. I know it's only halfway, but I do think Burton have not covered themselves in glory this season. I must say that. Bolton Wanderers versus Barnsley in what is a playoff contention. Whoever wins this is going to end up in the playoffs for the New Year period, probably. They're both quite equal teams, I would say, at the moment. Barnsley in 9th, Bolton in 8th. Both have not really been consistent enough for me to warrant themselves to get into the playoffs. But I mean, that 6th place one is still very much up for grabs, and I think Barnsley will win this one 3-2 to the Tykes, which will see them leak from Bolton and potentially get themselves into the playoffs, depending how the Lincoln and Reading game goes. Charlton and Cambridge United are at each other for this Boxing Day occasion. Charlton in 11th. They've not lost in their last 3 games, but there have been 2 draws in that time. They're up against a Cambridge side who have got half an hour of survival. They're 4 points away, and I think they could get a point here. 2-2 draw at the Valley here. Yeah. Exeter City versus Bristol Rovers. Bristol Rovers will be desperate to push away from relegation. And Exeter City are a weird team. I think they do well against the stronger teams in this league, not so much against the Bristol Rovers. And we must not forget this is a West Country derby. Both of these teams will be looking at this one, wanting to get the local bragging rights. 1-0 to Bristol Rovers in a scrappy win for them. Huddersfield Town versus Stockport County. 4th versus 5th, 3 points separating them. History should say that Huddersfield would win this one, but I'm going to go with a 0-0 draw. A very close fixture between the two. I can't see either of them particularly wanting to give much headway to the other side. Peterborough United versus Mansfield Town, sorry. Mansfield are in 10th. They are only 3 points off the playoffs. Results won't go their way to enable them to get into the playoff positions, but they definitely pose an opportunity. After that long losing run, they are now finally hitting back a bit of form. They've picked 4 points in the last 2 games. But Peterborough, I think they'll be wanting not to get into a relegation trap too much. 2-1 to Posh here at London Road. Yeah. Reading versus Northampton Town. Reading have impressed me this season. They were tried under difficult circumstances, and they have lost the last 2 games, partly maybe due to losing their original manager. But I think this one could be a close game. I know that Northampton Town have recently appointed Kevin Nolan, and Noel Hunt seems to be the manager of the Reading team at the moment. I'm not too sure about Noel Hunt. I've not come across the name uh, when I've been doing stuff in the past, so I might just have a little cheeky check at him. Yeah, he's only ever been caretaker manager at Reading. I don't think it's gonna be great, but I think he will get a win here. Uh, I think it will be a slender 1-0 win to Reading here against Northampton as Northampton battle for their life to try and stay away from that relegation zone. Rotherham United versus Wigan Athletic. Rotherham have not been great this season, but neither have Wigan. There is 1 point separating these two in 17th and 18th. But I think Wigan will win this one 2-0 for Athletic. Or the Addicts, isn't it? But yeah. No, is it the Addicts? No, it's not. It's the Latics. Flipping it. The Addicts is Charlton Athletic. But yeah, I could definitely see Wigan staying up this season. Rotherham, not so much. They've not been the most impressive. Lincoln City versus Shrewsbury Town. Shrewsbury Town at the bottom of the league. Only by goal difference, but they have conceded so many goals this season and not scored enough. Lincoln City, I think, will want to continue their playoff push at the moment, and I think they'll win this one here. 1-0 to the Imps, which will do them a world of good in just enabling them to stay in the playoffs. Stevenage versus Wycombe Wanderers. Stevenage are in 14th, but they have had a decent run of form of late, up against a Wycombe side who have also been a very good team. I think Stevenage at home, in a bit of a local derby, they're not too far away from each other. 1-0 to Stevenage, but it could go either way. I don't see, though, Wycombe managing to sustain themselves at the top of the league, at that top end for the entirety of the season. Wrexham versus Blackpool, another team who are flying sky high in League One, is Wrexham. They are only 2 points off the automatic zone, 3 points off this title. But against a Blackpool team who, let's not forget, haven't lost a game in the last 4 games and have won 3 out of them 4 games. They'll have a half an eye on playoffs, only 4 points away from it themselves. Under Steve Bruce, 2-1 to Blackpool here. A cheeky upset on the cards. That would have been mental to say a few years ago. AFC Wimbledon versus Swindon Town. I think this is going to be demolition day for Swindon Town. I must say they are a very... They managed to get a few points here and there, which has managed to mean that they're not in relegation zone yet. But I think they might be. Newport, or it's Wimbledon are in the playoffs, so Wimbledon are definitely the informed team coming in on this. 4-0 to Wimbledon at home at Plough Lane, which, if games do go their way, will mean that they get into the automatic places. I very much doubt all the games of Doncaster, Crewe and Chesterfield will go their way, but it will be a good omen if they do get into the automatic zones for New Year. Bradford City versus Port Vale. This is a difficult game for Port Vale, who have, although in second in the league, haven't won a game until 6 games ago, up against Bradford, who have only 3 points off the playoffs themselves. I think Bradford will want to be a sneaky win here, but I think Port Vale will be back to winning ways. 2-1 to the Valiants, continuing that automatic promotion push. I don't think they'll get the title. Walsall just seem too good this season. But yeah, Port Vale will definitely be trying to make sure that they are also automatically promoted. With Darren Moore at the helm, great manager, must be said. Bromley versus Newport County. Bromley in 13th. They have not been beaten in a long time. They're up against Newport County, who are down in 16th, who have also not been beaten in a long time, but have had 4 draws apart straight. But they did win their last game. I think Newport will win this one 3-2. A very close end-to-end game. Could go either way, though. Really could. Carlisle United versus Morecambe. What I dubbed a relegation 6-pointers. Because Carlisle are 4 points of safety and Morecambe are 5. And this is an important game in the long scheme of things. I think Carlisle have home advantage though. 3-1 at Brunton Park to Carlisle United. But will it be enough come the end of the season to make sure that they stay in the league? That's another question. Yeah. Cheltenham Town versus Crew Alexandra. I think Crew will be desperate to get back into that automatic positions. They're 1 point off. They've got a game in hand over Doncaster Rovers. But Cheltenham is a difficult team. They have not been beaten in the last 5 games themselves. They are 4 points off the playoffs. Probably have an eye on it themselves, but I'm going to go Crew to win this one. 2-1 at Warden Road for Crew Alexandra. Potentially get themselves back into that automatic position. Colchester United versus Gillingham. Gillingham in 10th, only 1 point off the playoffs. It's not easy playing against Colchester, who have not lost in a long time. Uh, let's just say a lot of draws in there. They have got 11 draws this season. But I think Gillingham will win this one. 1-0 to Gillingham, which will push them in potentially into the playoffs if games go their way. Fleetwood Town versus Chesterfield. Fleetwood are in 18th. They are very interesting team to watch this season. They seem to be losing points, but also gaining points left, right, and centre. And I think it could form a bit of a forward for Chesterfield, who, although are in the playoffs, haven't looked 100% convincing in every game. They've either been really good or just a bit off the pace. At home to a scrappy Fleetwood, 2-0 to Fleetwood here. Grimsby Town versus Harrogate Town. Yeah, Grimsby are only on goal difference away from the playoffs, but have lost their last 2 games and could, I feasibly think, lose this one here. Against Harrogate, who have lost their last 4, but they'll be wanting to make sure that they don't get into a relegation scrap. And Simon Weaver will be wanting to make sure he doesn't lose his job. Because I do think if they lose this one, I know he's done a lot with the club, but maybe it would be time to move on if they do lose this one. Because each game which goes by and they get dragged more and more into that mire of relegation scrap, you don't want to be that end of come the end of the season. But 2-1 to Harrogate Town, so that won't matter. I think they'll still be able to stay up come the end of the season with results like that. MK Dons versus Notts County. Notts County in 7th, MK Dons in 9th. 1 point separating these teams, same goal difference. This could go either way, it really could. I'm going to go with a 1-0 draw. I can't split these 2 teams here. Yeah, really close one. Salford City versus Barrow. Both of these teams are slightly having an eye on the playoffs, but probably, yeah, I think Salford's slightly more likely. They're 1 point off the playoffs. Barrow themselves are 5 points off the playoffs. They just need to gather a run together, and they could probably do much better. But at home, I think Salford will win this one. 5-3 of a Peninsula Stadium to Salford City. Tranmere Rovers versus Accrington Stanley. This is also an important game. Tranmere in 19th, Accrington Stanley in 22nd. 2 points separating these 2 teams. Both of them very realistic danger of getting dragged into a long, prolonged relegation scrap. Tranmere Rovers to win this one. 2-1 home advantage at Prenton Park. And Accrington's misery will continue. Walsall versus Doncaster Rovers. Huge game in League Two, this one. Walsall, top of the league, a grand total of 9 points behind them on Doncaster Rovers, who are only in 3rd, though, and they'll be wanting to make sure that they secure themselves a top 3 automatic finish. I think Walsall with this one, though, at home, would be very impressive at the Bescott as well. 3-1 to the Saddlers. On to the National League, we've got Aldershot Town versus Woking. The first of our many localised games in non-league is Aldershot versus Woking in, well, Surrey v Hampshire. They're right next to each other, realistically. And both of these teams are also looking downwards of the table. Aldershot are 3 points are 3 points clear of a drop. Woking are 4 points clear of a drop. Not much separating these 2 teams this season. I go with a 0-0 draw here. A very boring, scrappy game. Altrincham versus FC Halifax Town. Although this is not a local derby in any way, shape, or form, SC Halifax Town will be wanting to get all 3 points. They're only goal difference away from the playoffs, but they're up against an equally difficult Altrincham, who themselves are only a point off the promotion race. Did I say goal difference for Halifax? Because that's what I meant. Very close game coming into this, 8th v 9th. SC Halifax Town to win this one 2-1, but it's really, really hard to call. Barnet versus Sutton United in a all-London clash. Barnet on goal difference from the title, up against their fellow London team Sutton, who themselves are 3 points off the playoffs, but just can't seem to get themselves a good enough run of form to get out of that 13th position of their mid-table battles. I go Barnet to win this one fairly comfortably, 2-0 Barnet at home. They're the games you need to be winning. Boston United versus Solihull Moors. Solihull in 7th. They'll be wanting to make sure they stay in that playoffs. Up against a Boston team, which I think will probably be relegated this season. I think we can all agree upon that. I think Solihull win this one 4-1 to Solihull Moors. Dagenham and Redbridge versus Braintree Town in an Essex affair. Although Dagenham and Redbridge is now in London, it was in Essex for the longest time. 15th place Dagenham and Redbridge are, which definitely could be an interesting one. Up against a Braintree team who is only 2 points off safety, though. But I think Daggers have this one. 1-0 to the Daggers at home. Could be a good game, though. ASC Fylde versus Rochdale. ASC Fylde 2 points relegation zone. I don't think they'll be able to defeat a very good Rochdale team who are in 6th place. I definitely think they'll be wanting to get some more wins on the table. 4-1 to Dale here, away from home. Gateshead versus Hartlepool. I think it's going to be another one of them from last season. Another 7-1, yes. Gateshead are 4 points off the title. Do they have an eye on it? I do not know. But up against Hartlepool, a lot of local pride at stake. Hartlepool are a good run of form themselves, but I do think Hartlepool will lose this one. 7-1 to Gateshead. Another one of their ones. A big shock in the league. It was last time, and it may turn around this time as well. And maybe that will be enough to push them onto a seeded position for the playoff semi-finals. Maidenhead United versus Wealdstone. Wealdstone are only 3 points off safety, and Maidenhead United are one of them teams who are only 3 points. No, 3 points above the drop. Maidstone are 3 points from safety. No, 2 points from safety themselves. So 3 points separating these two teams. I can see this being a very close game. I think Wealdstone will win this one 2-0 as they just push a little gap between themselves and the relegation zone. Southend United versus Ebbsfleet United. Ebbsfleet on bottom of the league, only picked up 9 points all season, only 1 win to their name. Up against the Southend team, who I think are underachieving this season, 16th. But I think they'll win this one fairly comfortably. 3-0 Southend United. Tamworth versus Forest Green Rovers. Tamworth in 14th, in dead mid-table. They're up against Forest Green Rovers, who are in 3rd, on a really good run of form of late. Now, I know Tamworth can form upsets, but I don't think this will be one of them. Forest Green Rovers 2, Tamworth 1. Yeovil Town versus Eastleigh. Yeovil are themselves in a playoff push. You could argue maybe Eastleigh is as well. Yeovil is 1 point off the playoffs. Eastleigh are 3. Eastleigh in the better form of late. This could be a very close game. Home advantage will edge this one, though, at Hewish. Yeovil to win 1-0 to the Glovers. And in the late kickoff, we've got Oldham Athletic versus York City. Oldham in 5th. They are 5 points off the title, but they have won the last 4 games in a row, and they've been unbeaten for even longer. I think you look at Oldham, it's such a great team at home advantage as well. York have had a few slip-ups of late. They've dropped points in their title contention. 2-0 to Oldham Athletic. I think that could just prove a very good result come the end of the season. On to the National League North, got Rushall Olympic versus Oxford City. I must say, Russian Olympic this season have been disappointing. I think that's putting it mildly. Oxford have managed to get themselves a little bit of breathing room for relegation zone. Russian Olympic have lost the last 5 games. I think they will get a point here, though. A scrappy 0-0 draw. Yeah, Russian Olympic to try and make sure that they have a flicker of hope for the new year. Brackley Town versus Leamington. These two teams are actually closer than you think. And Leamington is 17th. Will probably be wanting to get an upset against Brackley, who are in 10th, who are 3 points off the playoffs. They've been a bit inconsistent this season, though, it must be said. I'm going to go Leamington to win this one 2-1. I think they'll be probably one to get more. Just to make sure that they solidify themselves away from any forms of fears at all of being relegated. And they won their last game, and maybe that could prove a turning of a page. Buxton versus Alfreton Town, an all Derbyshire affair. This is absolutely amazing. Alfreton is 7th, Buxton in 8th. Also equally important, 2 points separating these teams. Buxton win this one, it'll be huge, but I think Alfreton will. 2-1 to Alfreton Town here, and they will solidify themselves into the playoffs. But it's very open to playoffs in the National League North at the moment. Curzon Ashton versus Farsley Celtic. Someone who is wanting to get the title is Curzon Ashton. They've already got 1 point above the drop out of the title spot. They have got 2 games in hands over Kings Lynn, who are in second. But they're up against Farsley Celtic, who drew their last game, and I think it could be another draw. I think Farsley will scrap just to try and stay in this league. A 0-0 draw here, and a bit of an upset, I'm predicting. Darlington versus Scarborough Athletic. This is a very mid-table clash. 14th versus 11th. But Darlington have had a good form of late. They are themselves 4 points off the playoffs. I think they maybe have left it a little too late. And I think Scarborough will win this one. 1-0 to Scarborough Athletic in this local derby of sorts, which will literally only push them up 1 spot. But yeah, sticking with that prediction. Hereford versus Kidderminster Harriers. Herefordshire versus Worcestershire. Kidderminster Harriers are in 3rd, but only 2 points off the total themselves. Hereford in 6th. On 37 points. This is a very interesting game to predict because both of these teams had good form in non-league in the past. I think even both of them had a spell at some point in the Football League. I know Kidderminster Harriers definitely did. I think this could be a very competitive game at Edgar Street. 1-0 to Kidderminster Harriers here. A very, very cagey, close game. Kings Lynn Town versus Needham Market. Kings Lynn could also be another team who I see dropping points against a fellow relegation struggler, this one in Needham Market. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw here for Needham Market to pick up a point. It could be a good point come the end of the season. It will be a struggle for Kings Lynn to maintain their good form this season. But yeah, I think that would actually push, if my predictions are all right, Kidderminster Harriers to the top of the league. Marine versus Chester. I think Chester so much are going to dominate this one. With 4 points off the playoffs, they've been a bit inconsistent this season, more mid-table. But they are up against a Marine team who have lost the last 3. They do look pretty miserable at times. 4-0 Chester here. Continuing a good vein of form. Well, ish. They've lost 1 of the last 6 games, so it's an all right run of form, I would say. Peterborough Sports versus Scunthorpe United. Scunthorpe will be coming into this very much expecting to win their 4 points off the automatic title spot. Up against Peterborough Sports is a difficult task, who haven't been defeated in a long time, but a lot of draws of late. They have had, in their last 6 games, 5 draws and 1 win. I'll go Scunthorpe to win this one. 1-0 to Scunthorpe United. Radcliffe versus Chorley. Now, Chorley are in fifth, but I think this one could be a bit of a shock. I think we're in for a surprise here, as Radcliffe, who are already 3 points off survival, uh, will probably want to capitalise on this opportunity at home. 3-1 to Radcliffe, and another shock result in the National League North. You can never quite predict what happens in this league. Southport versus Warrington Town. Warrington Town are 6 points clear of relegation, but they could very much see themselves into it if they're not careful. I know they won the last game, but they are up against the Southport team away from home. Southport in 16th. They'll want to get another win. They've not had a win in absolute ages. So I think, Southport will win this one 3-0. Spennymoor Town versus South Shields. Spennymoor in 13th, South Shields in 9th. I think Spennymoor have home advantage here and might just edge it out. 5 points separating from 2. Spennymoor Town 2, South Shields 1. It's pretty much the story of South Shields this season, to be fair. Too inconsistent to actually get into the playoffs. On to the National League South, we have Slough Town versus Chesham United. It was a weird early kickoff for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's for travel reasons. Slough Town are in 11th, 6 points off the playoffs. I think that's becoming a flickering hope as the weeks go on. We're up against a Chesham team who have lost the last 4. I think Slough will win this one 2-1 to Slough Town. And maybe it's time for Chesham to start thinking of shaking up their managerial pack. Tunbridge Angels versus Maidstone United. Tunbridge Angels in 10th, 4 points off the automatic races, but they've certainly got the form to potentially do that. They're up against Maidstone United, who are in 5th, who are the informed side of the league as I am recording this video. So that is certainly going to be a tough game for Tunbridge Angels to come into it. And it is also a Kent derby. A 1-1 draw here at Tunbridge's ground. I think it's called Longmead or something like that. I don't think it'll be a great point, but I think it's one that they'll take come the end of the season. Aveley versus Hornchurch. Hornchurch, I've been a secret admirer of Hornchurch going about their business in 13th this season. They've been quite a side to watch. Aveley are 7 points off safety. I think it's a bit cut adrift at the moment. They are over the top relegation spot. A 2-2 draw here. Maybe we'll give them a bit of hope. But yeah, that's what I'll go with. Chippenham Town versus Bath City. Bath City in 20th. They don't want to continue to lose games. That's all I can say. Even though they have that 7 points breathing gap. Up against Chippenham, who are a very mid-table team. Let's face it, they are the most mid-table team in the National League South and have been for absolute years. They're in 14th. You couldn't be more mid-table. I go Bath City to come with an upset here. 2-1 to the Bath City, which will get them away from that relegation zone and potentially put other teams into a more jeopardy position. Dorking Wanderers versus Worthing. Worthing in 7th, Dorking Wanderers in 4th. If the season was to end today, they would be playing each other in the playoff quarterfinals. Both of these teams have had very good form as of late. Worthing to get back into the playoff contention. Dorking to have an eye. They're only 3 points off a title. Question mark, title charge. I think Dorking Wanderers at home going to dominate this one. 3-0 to Dorking Wanderers. Definitely, I wouldn't wipe them out for being in the title contenders come the end of the season. They have been impressive. Eastbourne Borough versus Salisbury. Another team on 39 points and 4 goal difference, plus 4 goal difference is Eastbourne Borough. They're in 8th, unlike Worthing in 7th, but almost identical. Up against Salisbury in 18th. I think Salisbury will make it difficult this one. They'll gain points for the season, Salisbury, that's for sure. A 2-2 draw here at Priory Lane. Going to be an interesting one. Enfield Town versus Boreham Wood. I think Boreham Wood have got a win written all over this one. They are doing a fantastic job. They have not been defeated in a long time. But with that surge, which took them from mid-table into a title charge, 3 points off it themselves, but they've got a superior goal difference as well. Up against Enfield Town, who are in 22nd. it's all pretty much a formality. Boreham Wood 3, Enfield Town 1. Farnborough versus Hampton and Richmond Borough. Farnborough are a cheeky playoff team this season, and I wasn't really expecting it. They're in ninth, but they're only 3 points off the playoffs themselves. So they just need to get back to winning ways, and Hampton and Richmond Borough do provide a chance for them to do that. I think we're going to go with back for the Farnborough boys here. 3-1 to Farnborough. Hemel Hempstead Town versus St Albans City in a Hertfordshire derby. I believe both of these teams in Hertfordshire. St Albans City are in relegation danger. And the form says it all that they've been on. They've only won 2 games all season. They are miles adrift in 23rd. But this could be a time for them to turn the corner. Hemel Hempstead have not been great either. They've only won 1 in like the last 7-8 games and lost a lot this season. They've lost 12 times. They've just managed to make some of their draws more into wins, but if they didn't have that, they'd certainly be well and down in there. I think sort of Albans City have a chance here. 3-2 to St Albans City in what could be a good resurgence for the club to see them maybe get out relegation zone. We'll see. Truro City versus Western-super-Mare. Truro City have an eye tied. They're 2 points off it. Western-super-Mare know amongst themselves who are still 6th in the playoffs. And if they gather back their form together, Western-super-Mare, they could certainly have an eye on the title. I think at the moment, anyone down from 1st to 8th could be in for a race of the title. Like, generally, there's only 4 points separating over. Anybody of these teams could get it if games go their way. I think Western-super-Mare to win this one 1-0. A bit of a shock result, maybe, but I'm going to go with it. Welling United versus Chelmsford City. This is Chelmsford in 16th versus Welling in 19th. I've not been impressed with either of these teams. Welling, they're about where I expected. Chelmsford are underperforming where I sort of expected them to be. I think Chelmsford will win this one, though. 2-1 to the Essex-based team. Weymouth versus Torquay United. Torquay could solidify themselves over top of the table here, certainly, up against its first versus last. But I think Weymouth won't be here to be passengers and pass the league by. I think they're going to cause an upset here. 1-1 at the Bob Lucas Stadium. Weymouth grinding out a point. Brighton and Hove Albion versus Brentford. Very interesting game in the Premier League here. A bit of a upper mid-table clash. Maybe both teams got an eye on the playoffs. I think not the playoffs. Sorry, the Europe of the Europa League. Brighton are 3 points off the Europa League positions. Brentford are 5th. I'm going to go with 2-1 to Brighton here at home. Arsenal to beat Ipswich here is a fairly obvious thing to say. I think Arsenal in 3rd, maybe have a title challenge still on. Ipswich in 19th, 3-0 to the Gunners. Pretty obvious thing to say, I think. Leicester City versus Manchester City. I think Manchester City could get a revival of form coming in. I think they'll get another win here up against Leicester, who have not looked great this season. They're just above relegation zone. 1-0 Manchester City. That'll be a couple of wins back to back from what I'm predicting, and will potentially push them back a bit of confidence to get Europe. Crystal Palace versus Southampton. Crystal Palace in 16th, Southampton in 20th. With their new manager, Southampton, can they do something against Crystal Palace? Is an important game, and I think Southampton will. 2-1 to Southampton. The question is, have they left it a little too late to have a good run of form? Everton versus Nottingham Forest. Everton in 15th, Nottingham Forest in 4th. You think Nottingham Forest are going to win this one, but I think Everton will. 2-0 to Everton. They have been a decent team under Sean Dyche. That good news for the club that they have got new owners. I certainly think a win here will do them a world of good. Fulham versus AFC Bournemouth. Bournemouth are in 5th, but Fulham are in 9th, and they're no mugs either. They've had a lot of draws of late, and if they convert them into wins, could be a genuine European contender. I have 3-1 at Craven Cottage to Fulham here. But yeah, generally, if either of these teams get Europe, it'll be absolutely huge shake-up in the Premier League. Tottenham Hotspur versus Wolverhampton Wanderers. I think Wolves could provide an upset here. Tottenham is such a weird team that they lose against some weak teams, win against some strong teams. It's just an odd team, and they always just seem to do well come the second half of the season. But I think Wolves will win this one. Get some safety for them. 2-1 to Wolves with their new manager, provided them a good bounce and potential safety. West Ham United versus Liverpool. Liverpool are in the driving seat for winning the Premier League at the moment and have been the best team of 2024 second half of this season. The first half of this season, the second half of the year. Up against West Ham, though, they know how to grind out points for Hammers. I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw at London Stadium, which is not what Liverpool fans will want me to be saying. Norwich City versus QPR. I'll go Norwich City to win this one, which will be against QPR's great run of form of late. But I think Norwich City could suddenly kick into life in the new year. 1-0 to the Canaries. Sheffield Wednesday versus Preston North End. Yeah, very interesting game, this one. Sheffield Wednesday have half an eye on the playoffs. I think they'll win this one against a bit of an outsourced Preston team. 1-0 to Wednesday. Sheffield United versus West Brom. Despite me predicting them to lose against Burnley by so heavy, I think they'll get back to winning ways here. Up against a strong West Brom team, let's not face it, they've got a very tricky festive period to gather to get some points against. But I think at home at Bramall Lane, 2-0 to the Blades, getting back on course for that title challenge. Blackburn Rovers versus Hull City. Hull City are down at the 21st position, fighting for their lives for safety. They don't want to be travelling to Blackburn. That's not what you want to do to pick up points. But I think Hull City will actually win this one. Bit of a shock potentially. I think Hull could go on a bit. Blackburn could go on a bit of a losing run here, which will do a shock to their confidence. 2-1 to Hull here. Bristol City versus Portsmouth. Yeah, Bristol City very mid-table. I could see them getting all 3 points against Portsmouth here. We're going to go 2-1 to Bristol City. Coventry City versus Millwall. I think Coventry will probably just about edge Millwall here, who I'm still not entirely sure what the new manager thing is. Anyway, Millwall to lose 2-1. Oxford United versus Plymouth Argyle. Plymouth Argyle are going to desperately want some points, and against 23rd place Oxford, where is a better place to start? I think they'll win this one. 3-1 to Plymouth Argyle, a win for Wayne Rooney's men if he's still in the job at the time. It's certainly looking difficult for Plymouth, but it was always going to be a challenge in a very competitive championship. Stoke City versus Sunderland. I think Stoke could provide another forward for a top-end club. This time around, it's Sunderland. I think Stoke will win this one. 2-1 to Stoke City, which will annoy Sunderland fans immensely, that I've said that, I imagine. Swansea City versus Luton Town. This is an interesting game for so many reasons, but both of them are in mid-table. But I think both of these teams probably had higher expectations at the beginning of the season. I thought Swansea would be roughly where they are. Luton, I thought, would be very much better. I think Luton will win this one, though. 2-0 to the Hatters. They're hitting a good run of form at the right time of the season, I believe, if my predictions come true. Watford versus Cardiff City. I think Cardiff could provide an upset here. Watford are 1 point off the playoffs, but Cardiff 1 point off survival. I think Cardiff, all credit to them, I think they'll pull off an upset because that win up against Oxford, I think I said they're going to beat, could be what they need. 1-0 for Cardiff here. Derby County versus Leeds. I fear we're going to lose this one against Leeds. I really do. Leeds will be great this season, and I don't think Derby have been the greatest team. They'll not be the worst, but they won't be able to beat Leeds here. 3-1 to Leeds at Pride Park. I hope for all that's hopeful that we beat Leeds though. Middlesbrough versus Burnley. Burnley in third, Middlesbrough in sixth. If this is a playoff semi-finals, I would not be surprised because any of them top three could play potentially any of the teams who are from fifth to eighth. It's still very open at the moment. But I think Burnley will win this one. They've been good this season. 2-1 to the Clarets, putting them potentially uh, a really good form that would put them maybe top of the league. I don't know if what I'm saying is correct there, but it could be. On to League One, we've got Charlton Athletic versus Wycombe Wanderers, and I think this is when the Wycombe crumble does begin, because I don't see them managing to maintain this form till the end of the season. Up against a team like Charlton, who have an outside shout at playoffs, this will do them a world of good. 3-1 to Charlton here, as Wycombe continue to crumble. Rotherham United versus Stockport County. I don't think Stockport will be able to rise against Rotherham here, because Rotherham will just want to not get to relegation battle. 1-0 to Rotherham United. Birmingham City versus Blackpool. I think Birmingham City could also drop points here against a Blackpool team who I think are quite the informed team as of late. And certainly I don't think should be wiped out from the playoff conversation. 1-0 to Blackpool here at St Andrews would be a huge result. Bolton Wanderers versus Lincoln City. I think if you see Bolton versus Lincoln here, I think Bolton will be wanting to get all 3 points. They're on the same amount of points at the moment. 3-0 to Bolton Wanderers. I'm going to see them get back into the playoffs. Exeter City versus Crawley Town. I think Exeter will probably win this one. Although Crawley have been close in games, I think there'll be another close and narrow loss. 2-1 to Exeter. Huddersfield Town versus Burton Albion. I think Burton Albion under Lee Boyer could do a good job. But they've got a different festive period against Birmingham or Huddersfield during the festive period before the New Year. Yeah, I think Burton will win this one. 1-0 to Burton Albion. There you go. Bit of a shock result, and that will be 4 points over the festive period in what would have been probably marked as back-to-back losses. But there you go. Leyton Orient versus Cambridge United. Leyton Orient, great form. I think they'll beat Cambridge here. I think it's a bit of a formality. 2-0 at Brisbane Road to the O's. Peterborough United versus Barnsley. I think Peterborough could take some points off Barnsley here, because Barnsley have been inconsistent this season. 2-2 for Peterborough here. I think will probably be a better point for Peterborough than it is for Barnsley. Reading versus Mansfield, another team who I think will probably want to get into the playoffs this season is Reading, and I think if against Mansfield, definitely a good chance. Mansfield, good team themselves, they'll be coming for an upset, but Reading to win at Majewski, 3-1. Shrewsbury Town versus Northampton Town. I think this is an important game for Shrewsbury to make sure that they don't get completely dead and buried and pretty much relegated out of it. Northampton Town are a team who I think at the moment are looking a bit shaky. They're only 2 points from safety. I think Shrewsbury can get all 3 points here. 1-0 to the Shrews. Stevenage versus Bristol Rovers. Another team who ain't looking in the greatest shape is Bristol Rovers. 3 points for relegation. I got told by one of the people who commented that they were going to be sacked their manager over the festive period. I don't think that'll be the case. Up against Stevenage, I can see them winning this. 3-2 to Bristol Rovers. Wrexham versus Wigan Athletic. I think Wrexham will fire blanks as all top 3 teams drop points up against a Wigan team, which I think will probably end up in mid-table coming into the season. A 0-0 draw here. Bromley versus Swindon Town in League 2. I think I'm going to go with the biggest shock of my predictions. I always try and do at least one during a prediction video, and I think this is going to be it. I think Swindon Town, out of shape, out of form, Swindon Town to win this one 7-0. Shock of the weekend. Carlisle United versus Accrington Stanley, another 6-pointer for Carlisle versus Accrington, hence why I decided to put it in the description. If Carlisle beat both Morecambe and Accrington Stanley, they could actually get out of relegation zone at the expense of Accrington Stanley, probably. 3-1 to Accrington Stanley, not for Accrington Stanley, for Carlisle. 3-1 to Carlisle. I think it's a torrid time for Accrington Stanley at the moment, and I think if Carlisle survive, it will be largely due to Accrington just haven't had any new ideas for a fair few seasons now. Bradford City versus Chesterfield. Talking about a team which is more in form is Bradford, who certainly haven't eyed the playoffs against another in form team, Chesterfield. But I think Bradford will win this one 2-0 at home, continuing on potentially pushing for the playoffs. Cheltenham Town versus Notts County. I think Cheltenham are an outside shout for playoffs. And because Notts County is a team that they will need to beat if they want to get into the playoffs, I think they will fairly comfortably 4-1 to Cheltenham here. Colchester United, I think, are going to be whopped by Doncaster Rovers. I know they've been impressive this season, but I do think Doncaster have just been this slight bit better than anybody else, but potentially have gone to Colchester Stadium. 4-1 Doncaster Rovers. Fleetwood Town versus Harrogate Town. 18th versus 20th. I think another close, cagey game. A 2-all draw here. 4 points for 2 games for Harrogate during this festive period. I don't think it would be too bad for them to get. Grimsby Town versus Port Vale. Grimsby in 8th, Port Vale top of the league. I think Grimsby will probably win this one. They've been a bit inconsistent this season, but they have had a half an eye on the playoffs throughout. 1-0 to Grimsby Town at Blundell Park. They're a team which you just don't like playing. I think that is a fair assessment. MK Dons 2 versus Crewe Alexandra. This is an interesting one. I think MK Dons will get back into the playoffs here with a 3-1 win against Crewe Alexandra. I don't think many people will really have expected that to happen. Salford City versus Morecambe. I'm going to go with Salford to win this one fairly comfortably. I don't think Morecambe have been the greatest team this season, as can you see from being in the 24th position, up against Salford, who are only, as I'm recording, 1 point off the playoffs, and I reckon they could do it here. 3-1 to Salford City. Tranmere Rovers versus Barrow. I think Barrow have been slightly better than Tranmere. The table does not lie, as they say. So yeah, I think Barrow's going to win this one 2-1. Walsall versus Newport County. I think Walsall will suffer a shock wobble here against Newport County, who have just one of them teams which shock people this season. 3-0 to Newport County. I think Aston Villa will massively beat Brighton and Hove Albion here. I think at Villa Park, if Villa can get into the top 4 by New Year, it'll be huge. 6-1 to Aston Villa. I think dropping a point from Chelsea here, they've done that a few times too many this season. A 0-0 draw at Portman Road, and Ipswich will view that as a vital point in potentially staying up this season. I think Manchester United could beat Newcastle United here at Old Trafford. They're going to be wanting to at least do something. 3-2 Manchester United. And AFC Wimbledon versus Gillingham. Wimbledon are in 6th. Gillingham are in 10th. 3 points separating the two. I'm going to go home advantage at Plough Lane. Wimbledon to win 2-0. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you are new around here. That would be hugely appreciated. I hope you have a very great Christmas. It's Christmas Eve right now as I'm live. I hope you have a great Christmas. But you get what you want from Santa, but you also have a great time with family, friends, whatever you're doing. Go and enjoy it. And I'll see you all in the next one.